Welcome, everyone, to the Bros Talking Soccer podcast, a podcast where three brothers generally chat about what's happening in American and European soccer. My name is Dave Knittel, the eldest Knittel brother. Christian and Matt, the other two Knittels, are both working, so I'm joined by our friend Matt Lefler to recap an absolutely bonkers day 13 of the 2019 World Cup. Matt, hello, how are you doing?
I'm feeling a little used, a little abused. And I had to drink some scotch in honor of Scotland. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Yes. So quick reminder, Matt and I, because these games are happening simultaneously, each watched one of them. I watched Japan versus England, which wasn't nearly as interesting or entertaining as Matt's Scotland versus Argentina match. And so we're going to get into all of that. We're both still feeling a little bit just bewildered at the way that game ended. Before we do that, quick mention, we are a part of the Big Heads Media Network. If you're a podcast fan, you have to check out Big Heads Media. They have over 40 different awesome podcasts about all different kinds of things. They have podcasts about sports. You got fantasy football. You have movies. You have history podcasts. Any podcast you could think of, it's there on Big Heads Media. So go check them out, bigheadsmedia.com. We're also a part of StadiumScene.tv. It is a network, a content network with all different kinds of content. They have podcasts. They also have YouTube videos, blogs about sports. So soccer, there's heavy soccer content on there, but tons of other sports. So if you're into sports, go check out StadiumScene.tv. Matt, we're going to save Jeff's question for in between our games because we have to get into this Argentina versus Scotland match. Since you were the one watching, pass it over to you to take the reins and let's start talking about it.
Okay, so I've made no bones, I think, thus far that I definitely am a Scotland fan. I wanted Scotland to win. So this result can kiss my ass.
Love props. All right. So for those who are just listening to the podcast, we also record live on YouTube, and you're missing this great content with props from Matt. So check us out on YouTube as well.
Okay. Where to start? I guess we should actually start at the end, which isn't normally how we do it. But so Scotland, let me think about this for a minute. So Scotland was the better team for probably about 60 minutes of this match. Initially, Argentina's press really gave them some fits, but they handled it. Argentina had one great scoring chance early on. We'll talk about that. But that once Scotland settled, they were clearly better until about the 70th minute, and then just kind of all hell broke loose. The Argentinian manager, who I don't know who he is, I know what he looks like. I could pick him out in a crowd. He makes an absolutely baffling sub, which I didn't understand. I thought it was, I just thought it was like a joke, like he was capitulating the match. He brings off basically their most skilled player and their best kind of passer, Benini, in the 60th minute. And she comes off the pitch and she is angry. She kicks a bottle. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. She puts on her penny. She's clearly furious with
what's the score at this point?
I believe it is. Is it 2-0 or 3-0? I didn't note that.
Do we want to? Okay. Do we want to start early? So I think I'm getting a little lost already.
Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to collect my emotions. So basically, what ends up happening is the game ends up a 3-3 draw. Argentina still mathematically has a chance to go through. Scotland was up 3-0 in the 70th minute, and they blew it. I mean, it was just such a monster collapse. What ends up happening was that's the largest comeback ever to get a point in the World Cup, at least the Women's World Cup. I don't know if it was on both sides, but that was incredible. So I'm still feeling a little raw.
Yeah. So I guess getting back to maybe in the early stages, again, I was mainly focused on Japan versus England, but every time I glanced down through the first 15 or 20 minutes, it looked like Argentina had the ball and was sort of pressing. I don't know if that was just coincidence, but so was Argentina the stronger side through like 15 or 20 minutes, or no? Was that just not exactly accurate?
That's absolutely true.
Okay.
Scotland was basically trying to patiently play their game and play out of the back. They looked nervous. They weren't completing passes. Let's see. What did I note here? I actually noticed. Yeah, so Scotland comes out in a 4-3-3. Argentina comes out in a 4-1-4-1. It changed from a 4-5-1 to a 4-1-4-1. One thing I really noticed early on was Kim Little, number 8 for Scotland, was already pushed into a lot more attacking role. Another thing, too, compared to their other 2 matches, Argentina decided to push numbers forward. They didn't respect Scotland at all. And they did. They oftentimes had 5 or 6 players in and around the box when the ball was up there. One thing I noted, too, about it's kind of interesting about this Argentinian team is they didn't have a national team or didn't really play any national team matches for 2 years, from 2015 to 2017. That's actually pretty recent. For them to be playing as organized and as well as they're playing and their league in Argentina, the women's league in Argentina, just turned pro, I think, last year.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit of context around that, the South American Confederation CONMEBOL now requires clubs to have women's teams if they want to partake in the Champions League. So in Copa Libertadores is what it's called. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of these clubs now either starting women's teams or professionalizing. So just add a little bit of information for people out there. So
it was kind of amazing after watching Argentina the first 2 matches in the group stage. They bunkered like crazy. Well, they didn't bunker in this game at all. So through the first 10 or 15 minutes, Argentina played a very high back line. They pressed, they were very organized. This is one of the things that really impressed me too, was, their pressing scheme was organized. They kept like throwing 3 players at like Scottish center backs who would often receive the ball out wide and then look to either play through the midfield or the outside backs. But Argentina would press with 3 players, and then they would often take away all the passing lanes. And then there was somebody kind of laying in wait to press the keeper, or one of the 3 people pressing would then peel off and then sprint at the keeper and then hope to win the ball back or get an easy goal. It didn't work, but it did result in that incredible chance where Argentina put the ball off the crossbar.
And then the rebound falls to Jaimez, right?
Right.
And then she doesn't take it first time. She tried to settle and probably should have tried to use her head.
But then makes a shot, and then it goes off Alexander's chest and then goes wide, and it's saved. Another thing too is Argentina decided to play Cuthbert and Kim Little extremely physically. Like that's what they did. And also in that time, Scotland looked really nervous. You would think that after 2 games prior to this of being pressed by other opponents, that they would kind of be a little bit more settled. I guess I would think so.
Well, I guess the only counterpoint to that would be that Argentina, in both their first matches, were in a very low block and weren't pressing high. So it may have caught them off guard. Again, I wasn't watching, but maybe they were thinking that Argentina would try to sit back and counter, and it sounds like they were pressing.
Yeah, they definitely were. It was interesting because Scotland's passes were just not tidy. Their touches were just not tidy. They were always like an extra 3 or 4 feet away, which gives, an Argentinian player like an extra third or an extra half of a second each time you take a touch like that. And that gives so much free space to your opponent. Every time you do that, when every single touch or pass is off by that margin and your players have to run on to that, then you're gifting your opponent's time. So in the 19th minute, Scotland finally strings some passes together and they work out of the press. Also in the 19th minute, Kim Little, what ends up happening is they work the ball up the field. This is basically the first time that they've worked through the press, by the way, successfully, and then got it into the attack. In that same 19th minute, off them working through the press, number 8, Kim Little scores off a rebound. Cuthbert receives the ball off a pass from a throw-in. She drives to the goal, takes a shot. Correa makes a good save, but doesn't parry it wide enough. Cuthbert then gets the ball and volley passes it across the goal, and then Kim Little slides in and puts it home. She was about 8 yards out when that happened. Oh, and by the way, Cuthbert knew Little was in the area, and so she tried to put it over there. So I also noticed that the few times that Scotland was actually up the pitch and the ball and they lost the ball in the Argentinian half for the first 20 minutes, Scotland pressed Argentina really hard. It's just that Argentina seemed better at dealing with it because they had been pressed hard the whole tournament. Scotland was a little bit more physical. Go ahead.
Than Argentina, or just more physical than they had been?
So Scotland was as physical as they had been, but I think Scotland was more physical than the opponents Argentina had faced before this.
Got it.
So I think that actually aided Scotland. And the ref, I can't remember. I swear she's refed.
She's the North Korean ref that we highlighted before.
We thought she was great before. Did not think
first
she was
game. Yeah,
great in this game. She let a lot of stuff go. But through the first 25 minutes, this is kind of an amazing stat. Argentina had 53% of the possession. Let's see, in the 27th minute, Benini is on the right side. She makes a nice pass up to Jaimez, who tries to carry the ball into the box. Corsi makes a brilliant 1v1 defensive play. She shields Jaimez off the ball. She carries the ball away as Jaimez tries to go down and make it look like she got fouled, but it was obvious it wasn't. It was just a brilliant 1v1 defensive play. Corsi then passes the ball in the midfield, and then the midfielder loses it. I didn't bother to mark down who it was. And it kind of, the rest of the half was basically Scotland working through the press, becoming more and more confident, and they really just had the run of play until the 70th minute. And it was weird, and they created lots of chances and so on and so forth. So first half summaries, Argentina definitely came out to win this game. Scotland tried to patiently pass beyond Argentina's forward press, which obviously took them by surprise and looked far more organized. That was the thing that I was surprised by, was how organized the Argentinian press was based on how they played before. I mean, these women have been working on this a lot, because because if you watch like South Africa or Nigeria's press, especially Nigeria's press, that is just a total bizarre show. It's just like, we're going to run at people and hopefully it makes them do bad things, but it wasn't organized. And it took Scotland to really look super relaxed until about 35 minutes into the game. Even though they were the better side for the previous 15 minutes, they didn't look relaxed, like they were in control of themselves in the game until about the 35th minute. And that was about 15 minutes after they scored. And one of the things that happened was, in order to get by the press, they started getting the ball a little bit more. And then the center backs started to try to carry the ball forward when their passing options were taken away. So I saw Corsi a couple times dribble the ball forward. She's actually quite good on the ball. She used to be a forward. And then she would go past the first line of press and then of Argentina's press, and then be able to just, pass the ball on, Beattie also looked like she did it. She's not as good on the ball. She's more of a strong 5'10", 5'11" enforcer type. And then that's the end of the first half. Do you have anything? Did you hear anything or see anything on the first half?
Nope.
Okay. So it goes into the first half. I actually forgot to mark the score. I believe Scotland's up 1-0 going into the first half. So they come out and then they score in the 49th minute. So it's 1-0. Scotland comes out looking really confident. Argentina's on the back foot, like heavily on their back foot through the first 5 minutes. In the 49th minute, Scotland wins a corner. Number 9, Weir takes it off Scotland's right side. It's a low driven ball. Argentina clears it, but it falls right to Little, who takes a brilliant touch out of the air, settles it right in front of her. She recycles the ball back to Weir. Weir then puts in a beautiful ball into the box, and number 5, center back, because both of Scotland's center backs are forward, which is how they do things, puts a really nice head on the ball, gets some pace, and puts it past Correa, and Scotland's up 2-0.
I do want to point out on this play, Argentina, as they were pushing out after the corner kick, your defense steps out. Cometi does a good job of getting her teammates out, and then as soon as Little plays the ball out wide to Weir. I think she loses a little bit of track of where she is on the pitch, and she actually has her hands out and is looking to her right. The ball is currently on her left, and she is about a yard behind the rest of her defensive line. And so there's a hint of if Komedi was a little bit more in line with the rest of her teammates, Beatty, right? Is that who? Yeah, Beatty may have been offside. Again, is a little bit harsh, but again, it's these little sort of fine margins that make the difference.
Happens, yeah. And
so I did that. That was one thing I noticed on the replay again, because that just caught my eye.
So let's see, in the on the 57th minute, this was actually almost an indication of what was to come. The 57th minute, excuse me, Argentina has an excellent chance for a counter, but they pass the ball through, and then Little just kind of holds up their midfielder for about 2 seconds, and that just slows her down. And that gives, it actually was Benitez, Argentina's number 16 Benitez. And it slows Argentina down just enough for Scotland to get into a defensive shape. And that always amazes me. Like when you actually count the seconds, like 2 seconds, gives like 15 yards to the opponent. So, and then I said before, in a seemingly baffling move, Benini subbed off for Menendez. I was like, okay, whatever. Scotland continued to look more and more organized and confident going forward. Argentina looked like they had zero answers. In the 68th minute, Cuthbert dribbles past 4 Argentinian defenders, puts a shot low and to the right. Correa makes a really good kick save. And then in the 69th minute, off a rebound off the post, Cuthbert on that same save, because when Correa saves it, I keep saying Correa saves it, she parries it into the post. Cuthbert picks it up. What am I doing?
And scores.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. Actually, did she score that one?
She did.
Yeah. Thank you. Because my notes did not say what happened after that. Anyway, so that was my save of the day, which we'll get to later. Did you saw this play?
Yeah. So I saw kind of the end result. I saw the diving. I think it was off of a header. So Correa's initial save off the post. It was kind of looping. I don't remember the exact shot. I just remember her being in the air, getting fingertips to it, pushing it off the post, and then Cuthbert pouncing on the rebound.
Wasn't this the one where she made a foot save? No, that was the foot save.
No, the foot save one was before. About a minute before. And I think that one went out for a corner kick. Maybe this was the resulting corner kick?
I think it was, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. But again, there was so much to write about in this section. I kind of didn't know what to pick out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would stop and then try to get my act together. It was crazy. Let's see. And then in the 74th minute, Beatty goes in for a tackle. Argentina is pretty deep. They're basically in the Scottish third. Goes in for a tackle. She gets beat. I think it's by number 16, Benitez. No, actually it was Ippolito, the 17-year-old who gets subbed in. She's 17, and then she gets by Beatty. Beatty goes down. She then dribbles into the box. Or no, she passes the ball to Menendez on the left side of the goal. And then she basically takes a shot and then buries it past Alexander. And suddenly it's like, oh, it's 3-1.
You think it's a consolation goal. Good for them. Happy that they scored. And, that's going to be that. The game's going to finish 3-1. Right, Matt?
Right. That's exactly what we're thinking, right? So then in the 79th minute, Cuthbert misses a great chance off a corner. Correa saves the ball with a catch and then starts a counter. And then everybody on Scotland is like, oh, and they were caught completely off guard. But no, Correa makes a great save. Throw out to number 11, Bonsegundo, and then she carries the ball forward, and then she shoots it from like 30 yards out. It's a really high shot. Alexander is slightly off her line, maybe a little bit too far, but not really, because Bonsegundo really kind of didn't have any business taking the shot. But it turns out she did, because Alexander hits the ball, puts it into her crossbar. It then bounces down, has backward spin because it bounces down out of the goal, has backward spin, and then rolls over the line. And then all of a sudden, in the 79th minute, it's 3-2.
And on this, I wanted to bring this up because I brought this up when we were talking about, I think it was the Scotland-England game, where England had a really nice hard shot, but it went basically directly over Alexander's head.
Right.
And she's 5'7", which isn't the shortest for a goalkeeper, but it's certainly not anywhere near the tallest. And so again, on this play, this is another one where she's beaten over her head. So Matt, I wanted to get your opinion on if that is, is there any sort of issue with her not being tall enough to get to some of these higher balls? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I always question that because I know Hope Solo was listed at 5'9". She's not 5'9". She's not.
Shorter or taller?
She's shorter.
Okay.
She's about 5'8". Maybe she was leaning forward on her cleats and it was on a concrete surface and her cleats were extra long that day. But she's not 5'9". Rachel Corsie is 5'9". And she's taller than Hope Solo by about an inch. So, because they used to play on the Reign together. That's how I know this. Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe Ashlyn Harris is listed at 5'8". Ashlyn Harris is shorter than Hope Solo, who is in reality about 5'8". So Ashlyn Harris, I guess if you're athletic enough, Ashlyn Harris is a keeper for the U.S. And what I'm trying to say is if you're athletic enough, I don't think that this is necessarily a problem.
I agree.
You have to play things perfectly.
Well, I agree. So then is she athletic enough? Because this is twice now that she gets beaten high on balls that I would consider maybe a taller goalkeeper would save. So if you can make up for it with athleticism, I'm in agreement with you. But is she missing out on that? That's what I'm asking you.
She's certainly good going laterally. I haven't watched enough Scotland to know how good she is. Height wise, she is good laterally, but and positionally she's sound from what I could see. But I guess the answer is probably no.
Yeah, and again, I've only seen 2 games with her, so it was just something that I've noticed. So, all right, let's get to the chaos now.
Okay, so hold on. So we're getting there. So the 83rd minute, Scotland is starting to look really tired in defense. Argentina's subs look fresh and attacking. In the 85th minute, this is another thing too. Like Cuthbert gets a really stupid yellow card because she kicks the ball out of bounds because Scotland has a corner kick that just fails, and the ref gives her a yellow card for time wasting. In the 86th minute, Scotland makes 2 changes. I didn't note who they were, although I know one of them was Sophie Howard. Let's see. In the 87th minute, the VR looks at oh my gosh, this is only a minute after Howard came in. I didn't realize this.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Chaos.
This is what we were talking about right before we went and recorded. So this is a really weird situation. And I think you and I have seen this at least once already this World Cup, but a team is making a substitution. Scotland is making a substitution, I believe, on their own defensive corner, which you don't see very often.
Right.
And as soon as the Scottish player, I guess it was Howard, steps onto the field, the referee allows Argentina to take the corner kick. Usually, referees allow the player entering the pitch to get into some sort of position. And so I think Argentina taking the corner so quickly really caught Scotland off guard. And so what happens then is there's a mad scramble. The Scottish players are very disorganized, and the ball eventually squirts through to Comedy, who is then taken down by, was it Beattie? Who took her down?
It was Sophie Howard, like a minute after she came on.
Okay. So Howard was the player then, I guess, that got back into position. So then it must have been Fiona Brown was the player that they were waiting for to come onto the pitch. Either way, there's a foul that happens because, again, there's a lot of this chaos. It's not called. The ball goes the other way, and eventually then it goes to VAR. So I wanted to bring all this up because I think a lot of this chaos comes about because the referee doesn't allow Scottish players to get into the position that we generally see other referees doing. So I wanted to bring that up.
And that kind of goes into what we sort of foreshadowed at the beginning of this today, was that ref we thought had put in the best performance thus far. And this was probably one of the worst performances I've seen in the group stage of it is the worst one that I've seen with the matches I've watched. She allowed like lots of overly physical play. from both sides. The game really started to degrade. Not letting the Scottish team get into position off that corner that's just honestly, it's really poor officiating, because although we've seen a lot of rule changes or different directives supposedly this World Cup, but not letting the players get into position, it's like, well, why even are you allowing a sub then? It's like you're literally penalizing a team for having a sub.
Having said all of this, it's ultimately on Scotland. They didn't defend it well. And also, Scotland, a lot of times you won't see defensive teams make substitutions on their own defensive corners because there can be a little bit of chaos. And so, I'm not trying to make excuses for Scotland here, but I'm also saying that the referee played a role in this as well. And this is the referee from North Korea. She had played in 2 World Cups, and now she's refereeing her 2nd World Cup. So she was very impressive in the first game she reffed. This one, not so much. But back to you.
So the interesting thing is usually what the ref will do is simply not allow the sub until after the play has happened.
No,
I've seen that on their own. When people want to defend, when a team defending a corner tries to make a sub before the corner, a lot of times the ref won't allow the sub right before the corner. I've seen that.
It's the opposite. Usually it's the referee can't deny a sub when the ball goes out of play. Usually it's the team that's trying to make the sub. They don't want to make the sub. So they're the ones that hold it back. And this is at the professional level. At the youth ranks, there are different rules. But at the professional level, when the ball goes out of play, or actually any stoppage, so free kicks and all of that, there can be a substitution, and the referee cannot deny it.
Really? I didn't understand, because just from what I understood was the referee, that the center ref had to approve each sub. When somebody was standing there with the 4th official, and it's okay if I'm wrong, I just didn't understand the rules.
Technically, no. So technically, the referee can deny any sub at any time for any reason, but teams are supposed to be allowed to make a substitution whenever there's a stoppage in play. But it is ultimately up to the referee's discretion. But anytime you see a team start to make a sub or sub up and they don't come in on a defensive corner, it's generally, I would say, like 95% of the time, possibly higher, the team that is trying to make the sub. They don't want to make it because it is a set piece and they don't want to throw off their defensive schemes.
Oh, okay. We will never know. We will never know. So this leads to a penalty, and it should have been a penalty. Howard just brings the Argentinian player down in the box. She goes through her legs. VAR got it right. But then, so this is the 87th minute when it goes to VAR. Bunsegundo's first attempt at the penalty doesn't happen for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. There were 4 minutes added on to stoppage time. So there was nothing done for the added time to take the penalty or the VAR. Then Bunsegundo takes a terrible penalty shot, just an absolutely terrible penalty shot. Alexander saves it. Scotland's ecstatic. They're going to win the game 3-2. But now there's a retake because VAR says that Alexander's foot is off the line, which her foot was off the line. But one of the replays shows her heel being above the line. So
it's not on the line, but I don't have clarity because in soccer with the ball, it's vertical. The lines go vertical. Right. And so it has to be, over the line completely. And so I don't know the actual rule. I think it is the goalkeeper needs to have a foot on the line. But again, you're spot on there. Her heel did look to be above the line. Is that, I don't know. And this is also gets into something. So Jeff and Sal are both here with us on YouTube. Thank you guys for both being here. And they're both bringing up kind of the similar point that VAR is supposed to be clear and obvious errors that it's correcting. Right, and so with this, we're getting into kind of the way, whether it's NBA or NFL gets into things where it's black and white and it's, we're measuring like little, hairline differences. And is that really what we want from VAR in all of this? It's disrupting the flow of the game. Yes, we want to get the calls correct, but at what price? And so, it's frustrating. So thank you guys for being here and chiming in with your thoughts. Matt, any thoughts to add on top of that?
Well, and then Bunsegundo gets another attempt. This VAR, The VAR in this takes about a minute and a half. She takes another attempt. She buries it. Still, it wasn't a great penalty.
She basically hit the same one that she did. Just the goalkeeper Alexander dove the opposite way. It's
right.
Still not a very good penalty.
No, not at all. It ends up 3-3. That's the final score of the game. Scotland gets their first point ever in a World Cup. It had to feel like a loss. That was a terrible meltdown on the Scottish side. Let's see, the second half summary is this was Scotland's match to win. The game was all Scotland in the second half until Argentina made the subs, and mostly it was all Scotland until like the 78th or 79th minute when Argentina scored off that counter. Argentina subbed off some of their best players and it worked, which doesn't usually happen. This reminds me of, this is such a Scottish meltdown. It's like whenever I've heard Brits make fun of Scotland, it's like every time they get up, they'll blow a game and so on and so forth. And I've heard Scotland mention stuff like, people in Scotland mention that like when they're playing England and stuff, so on and so forth, that they'll get up by a goal and then they'll think they're going to take it and then they lose 4-1 and so on and so forth. And that's terrible. Argentina makes history by coming back from 3 goals down to get a point. No other team had ever done that. I feel like the ref should be absolutely embarrassed for not adding more time on. It's like she just didn't want to be on the field anymore. She didn't want to deal with the game. That to me is such a glaring error that she shouldn't be allowed to ref any more matches. And it doesn't mean Scotland would have scored in those 2 minutes, but that's what you're supposed to do. If Thailand had to suffer through 3 extra minutes after being down 13-0 to the United States, when that game was closed, you add the 2 damn minutes in extra time for the VAR stoppage.
Yeah, and I'm glad we came back to this because I thought we were going to gloss over it. But so Argentina needed to win that game as well to put themselves in. Like both teams wanted added time. So like you already alluded to, the first VAR, first off, she's listening to the VAR for probably a good minute to 2 minutes. And then she goes over to look at the VAR for maybe another minute or so. So now we're at, let's say 2 minutes already. Then she goes
5 minutes.
Then she goes and is talking to the goalkeeper, making sure she stays on her line. Then Corsi is doing everything in her power to delay the penalty from happening. And so the penalty isn't even taken for 5 minutes. Then we have it's saved, and then we have another VAR review. You're talking about 5 to 6 minutes of stoppage time just for that. And the referee ultimately blows the whistle, I think, after maybe 94.5 to 95 minutes. So she added on maybe 4 to maybe an additional 30 seconds to a minute after all of that chaos. You saw the announcers didn't even know that the game was over.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
No idea.
The players were upset, both sets of players, because, again, this was just so incorrect from the referee not to add on times. And that's adding on top of all the other, bad decisions that were made throughout the game. But this one, I was just, by this point in the game, I'm just watching your game. I was barely paying attention to Japan versus England. And, for good reason. But I'm glad we circled back on that because that was so frustrating for both sides to have the ref not add on the appropriate time.
Well, and to be clear, too, I thought Corsi should have gotten, at the very least, a yellow card.
Oh, 100%.
That was completely inappropriate of what she was doing. And, I'm a huge fan of Rachel Corsi, but that wasn't cool. I mean, she was close to letting her emotions get the best of her. She was walking up, trying to intimidate, she was wasting time, all this stuff. And the ref just kind of didn't take control, and she should have yellowed her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to an extent, it worked, and the first penalty was saved, and then it came back. And then also, you could see the Scottish players in the background clapping, yelling while the players is taking the free kick. So they were doing everything in their power. And I mean, this is their World Cup future, and you can understand a lot of emotions there. And it was unfortunate that the referee just became a huge part of this story.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because you don't want the refs. You want the refs to be consistent, even if they're kind of questionable. You want their questionableness or questionability or something to be consistent. Like I've seen refs, at college games where, pardon my language, it's just a complete shit show on the ref, but it's equal going both ways. And you're like, oh, okay, well, all right. That's how this game's going.
It's predictable, at least, predictable, inconsistent or not inconsistency, predictable poor refereeing, because at least it's predictable.
Right.
All right. Anything else from this game?
No, I think that's in the books. I don't want to ever talk about it again, although I'm sure I'll have to.
Yeah, fair enough. And so, like Matt, I think we touched on this before. Argentina is not officially out. If Thailand and Chile and Cameroon and New Zealand both draw tomorrow, I believe Argentina is through. So they're still live, though not likely to move on. But again, incredible for a team that most people thought were going to get beaten up pretty badly at this World Cup. So before we talk about Japan versus England, let's take a little break. Let's do something else to sort of get our minds off of that. And so Jeff has a question for us from YouTube. He sends these in, so we always appreciate it. And this is fun, sort of non-soccer related, though this has a soccer tie-in. So Matt, you and I, we're going to fly over to England, which is where Jeff is, and then we're going to take a road trip over to Paris for the final of the Women's World Cup. On that, we need to pick 10 songs between the three of us. Jeff has sent in 5, so we each need to pick 3. And then take one of Jeff's out. And so his 5 songs that he has is American Girl by Tom Petty, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, Basket Case by Green Day, All Summer Long by Kid Rock, and Get Ready by The Temptations. So Matt, what song do you want to take out from Jeff? Let's start there.
Get Ready.
Get Ready? Yeah, okay. So I can agree with you on that one. It was either that one or even the Kid Rock one I would have been okay with taking out as well, but Get Ready is the one that I can get rid of. So
okay, so wait, you're gonna go with Get Ready then? I'm gonna take out the Green Day song.
No. We just need to agree on one song to take out, because then we each have 3, right?
No, we each get to take out 1.
Okay, but then the math doesn't add up. Okay,
but it never adds up.
Okay, fine.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Get Ready. That's fine. Right. I understood the question.
Okay, so what are your 3 songs that you're adding?
I was too busy being an ass with my response. So yeah, I thought I was prepared, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so what are the 3 songs that you're then adding?
One is going to be Seek and Destroy by Metallica.
Okay.
The other one is going to be Killers by Iron Maiden. There's a theme there. Okay. And then the third one's going to be Dreams by the Allman Brothers. Because I want you guys to feel really uncomfortable around me.
Okay, because that's all right. So we should come prepared to defend ourselves in that car. All right, fair enough. As I think I got a couple years younger than the two of you guys, so I'm gonna try to just I feel like I'm pressured to put in some younger people's songs. So I got to go with "Ride with Me" by Nelly. So Nelly, that was the first CD I ever owned, and us in the car. So I got to go with that one. Then I will go with this is not young at all, but Bohemian Rhapsody, something we can all rock out to in the car, sing along with. And my other one is, I'll go with One Headlight by the Wallflowers.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up, I was not allowed to listen to rap music until probably middle school. So One Headlight was on it was called Star 104.5 all the time in the early 90s. And that was my favorite song growing up as a kid.
Great song.
Yeah, so those are going to be my 3 songs. So that would be a very fun road trip. Maybe we can do that at some point in the future. Let's get back to the action here. And we had Japan taking on England in the other match, and it was not nearly as eventful as the first game we talked about here. Japan fell 2-0 to England, so England came through with a 2-0 victory. A couple things to note: England had 8 lineup changes, and so Matt, we touched on this yesterday that you've said that Phil Neville likes to rotate his lineups. I thought that he would go back to more of a set system, and that was not the case. And the broadcast touched on, he had done an interview and brought up that he said England's issues, I think both on the men and women's side of the game, have been that their teams run out of steam later in tournaments because they don't have lineup rotation. And so, I mean, it was impressive that he took this chance and has the faith in his players. That's got to be confidence building throughout the squad to know that you're going to get opportunities to perform, and then to step up and get a 2-0 victory here was, it's got to be confidence building for the English team. Japan was setting a higher line of confrontation on the defensive side of the ball, but what they were doing is they were probably 75 yards from their own net when the line of confrontation was. But if the center backs for England possessed the ball, they didn't pressure them. They basically tried to make them make passes. And so they were just getting into passing lanes and sort of taking things away. And when the ball was played out to an outside back or into the middle, they would then sort of collapse. And that was their defensive strategy. And I think it worked a lot because for the first probably 15, 20 minutes, there was a ton of passing between England's defenders and their goalkeeper. And they weren't really trying to go long. They were trying to play through it. And then what they started to do was play it long mixed with playing through the Japanese pressure. And so for a good 60 minutes, England looked pretty good doing that. I say that because second half, Japan really started to take it to England. But that was what England was doing kind of in possession. Ninth minute, Japan wins a free kick, and Yoko about 25 yards from the English net and more or less dead center. It's slightly to the far side of the pitch. Yokoyama steps up and just hits an absolute knuckler. It curves in. She hits it with a right foot and it curves in just ever so slightly. It's going upper 90, like as upper 90 as you could possibly get it. And Bardsley has a full extension save to tip it over the bar. So that was a fantastic save by her there. 14th minute is when England gets their first goal. It's a Japan goal kick, and they try to play it short. They eventually knock it long, and England wins kind of the challenge from that. And so the Japanese defenders are a little bit more spread out because it's a goal kick. They think they have possession, and so they're a little bit more spread out. England ultimately wins the ball, and then Stanway has a really nice turn where she turns her defender who's on her back, the Japanese player, and sort of seals her to the inside, and she rolls her to the outside. And the Japanese player is all over her. It's going to be a foul, but Stanway does very well to poke the ball through to White. Ellen White, I think is her name, number 18 on England. Ellen, is that her name, Matt?
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. White, number 18 on England, who takes I think it's a first time or maybe takes a touch and then has a partially slotted, partially chipped ball. It doesn't go very high, but she finishes with her left foot into the far post, 1-0 to England. And this had kind of had some warning signs earlier in the match where the Japanese defenders or goalkeeper were having really poor giveaways in possession out of the back. And England was doing a good job of taking those and creating dangerous chances from them. And this one, they actually get a goal.
Yes, that was definitely Ellen White.
Ellen White. Okay. Yamashita, the Japanese goalkeeper, kept Japan in this game till they started to take more control in the second half. She had two big saves back to back in, I believe it was the 17th and 18th minutes, both from distance shots. One was from, I believe, Jill Scott, and I can't remember the other one, but full extension saves by Yamashita and really good saves. One came through traffic and she was kind of moving the wrong direction. She ends up tipping it over the bar, but she had a really good half. Twice in the first 30 minutes in these matches at this point, both these sides are moving on. So I'm looking for kind of patterns to look out for or things that the teams are doing in the future. Japan, twice within the first 30 minutes, had, I think it was Yokoyama who did it both times, but she went to go shoot the ball and it looked like she was shooting. And then she ended up playing a really hard pass to a running teammate. Neither of these ultimately ended up working out, but that's just something to keep an eye on moving forward.
That's a really cool play though. It's kind of like, I remember when I started doing, when I would go up for shots in basketball, because I was generally bigger than most people, I would draw more attention. And then all I would do is pass the ball off to a teammate. And they were usually wide open because there was a mismatch with, 2 or 3 players being on me.
Absolutely. And so that's something where defenders probably just shut off when, players going to take the kick, and then runners can get into more dangerous areas. And that's something to keep an eye out for from the Japanese attackers moving forward. Again, England did relatively well to cut down on that, but it was close, sort of last ditch interceptions from England on that. 34th minute, Walsh has a long ball over the top to Daly to run onto, fires the ball. The ball's kind of bouncing. She does well to sort of navigate around the Japanese defense. And again, Yamashita has a good reaction save. The ball's coming more or less right at her, maybe at her face, maybe slightly over. She gets a hand to it, tips it over the bar. But again, Yamashita keeping Japan in the game at this point. And then last thing I noted from the first half, England was doing well to mix short and long passing to get through the Japanese pressure. Second half, Japanese just way too slow in their buildup. This was something I noticed throughout where Japan is very technical, but at the end of the day, they don't have the size, they don't have the strength, and they don't have the speed of teams like England. And so even when they got into dangerous areas or created little windows of opportunity for themselves, they were either too slow, too weak, or just took too much time to get the ball. Too slow meaning they couldn't separate from the English defenders, and then too long meaning that they just dwelled on the ball and allowed England to get back into dangerous positions.
Just a quick note. Yeah. One thing I have noticed with Japan, even going back to the 2015 World Cup, is one of their problems is in their style of play. They sometimes try to be too perfect. That's how I look at it. because you can tell their quality on the ball and how they're scheming, but they just try to execute it too well sometimes, and they cut themselves. They cut themselves. They hurt themselves.
Yes, I understand what you're saying there, and that's a really good point. I thought in the 61st or 62nd minute, Japan makes a double sub and brings on Sugasawa, the number 9 center forward, who has a little bit more aggression, is a little bit more direct, and isn't looking for the perfect pass. She's just trying to get touches onto the ball and go to net. And so I thought that she probably should have started the game, because from the 61st, 62nd minute on, it was more or less all Japan. And a lot of that had to do with Sugasawa. 66th, Japan plays a ball direct over the top. Bright, the English center back, completely misplays it and falls to Sugasawa. She has a touch, but takes it too large. And then Houghton does a really good job of getting back to clear it out, the other English center back. But again, if Sugasawa is a little bit more clinical, a little bit better as a center forward, that might have been a chance. And again, after the subs happened for Japan in the early 60th minute, the English center backs did not look nearly as good. And I think a lot of that had to do with Sugasawa just occupying them. And they looked
interesting.
Yeah, they looked really shaky. And quite a few opportunities for Sugasawa, and other chances came like just straight down the middle. And so part of that is probably a defensive center midfielder's job for England, but also the center backs were not covering themselves in glory. Again, noting some things to keep an eye out for. Bardsley, the goalkeeper for England, does not have the strongest kick coming out of the back, both on clearances and or goal kicks. She can't kick it as far as some of the other goalkeepers I've noticed in this tournament, and that's something that other teams might be able to key on there.
So how far are we talking? Like to the bottom half of the circle, or because I know Alyssa
Naeher that area
has an extremely good kick. She goes beyond the far part of the circle. So
in her own half, the bottom part of the circle is kind of, she's not getting it to the halfway line, and the kicks are coming oftentimes low. And so they're easier to intercept. And even when she gets them up into the air, they're coming to, like you're talking about, maybe 45, 50 yards from her own net. So again, something to just keep an eye out for as England moves forward in this tournament. Ali Wagner, the commentator, brought up on the broadcast that England has really struggled to close out games. Matt, as you followed the game a little bit more than I do, is that something that you've noticed in the past?
I've heard that rhetoric around England. Unfortunately, I haven't really been able to watch them very much in order to kind of prepare for the World Cup. What I did, this is irrelevant, honestly, but I watched the 1991 and then the 1999 semifinals and finals because the US won them to get myself in the mood. Then I watched parts of 2 England matches. Yeah, one, honestly, England played Canada and Canada won on kind of a fluky goal. By Christine Sinclair, and that was kind of a surprise win. And then the other one, I only watched the first half, but that seems to be the thing. And I wonder if that's because Neville does so much rotation, squad rotation, because he changes up defenses too. So I wonder if they just don't have that time to build that synergy in the back line, or that, the minutes to build that synergy in the back line. So
yeah, that's a potential one. Also, the broadcast noted that the last 7 victories for England in the World Cup have all been 1 goal. So maybe it runs a little bit deeper where they can't close teams out, because those would have come under a different manager. So that's just something else to keep an eye out for. And in this one, they ultimately get a second goal completely against the run of play. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just wanted to touch on Iwabuchi for Japan was their best player in the second half. She was very creative, getting into dangerous areas and serving up the ball for Sugasawa, who had a number of chances, just couldn't finish. England's goal comes in the 84th minute, completely against the run of play. White, again, is the goal scorer here, but Nikita Paris, who came on as a sub, she's out wide on the left flank. She does well to drive inside, plays the ball across to Jill Scott, who takes a first-time ball into Carney. And so what this did was really unlock the Japanese defense. And Carney was just in a ton of space, and Japan was not organized at this point. She plays, I think it's on her second touch, a ball in behind to White, who was running onto it. And then she just finishes first time left foot near post. Again, first half she scored on the far post with her left foot, and went near post with this one, and a really good goal from England, completely against the run of play. And game ends more or less after that. 89th minute, Sugasawa has another opportunity. Bardsley saves, And again, this came right through the middle of the defense for England. And Sugasawa could have finished maybe 1 or 2 chances. It's a different game. But England gets the goal here and the victory. 2 goals, victory. And England's moving on and will likely face, he talks slow as he tries to pull up the knockout rounds. Oh, no, not going to work. Matt, any other thoughts on this game while I get this up?
No, because I didn't watch it.
Okay.
The only thing I can say is I've been a little bit disappointed by Japan throughout the tournament. I've actually been a little disappointed by England throughout the tournament. I thought they were going to be a real powerhouse. They play with moments of confidence, strings of confidence, or stretches of time, if you will, but they don't put together complete games.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. This one was probably 55, 60 minutes of England playing really well, probably should have had multiple goals and dominating, but they didn't get that second goal. And then Japan really came to life, and England was fortunate to win this one 2-0, in my opinion.
So this kind of goes on to like one of our matches tomorrow. The commentators for the previous Canada game were saying, oh yeah, Canada doesn't have a lot going forward. They eke out a lot of wins 1-0. Maybe tactically they're not as good under this new coach as they were under Herdman, which honestly, Herdman wasn't really a tactical genius. He was more of a confidence builder.
Okay.
He would build community and then kind of let the girls do, or he would call them the girls, do what they needed. They felt they needed to win. But my point in bringing up Canada is even though they may win by 1-0, they don't look like they're lacking. They look like they have a plan. They look like they're executing the plan. And even when things aren't going well, they look like they feel confident and they can adjust to how the plan's going and then just gut out a win. Or sometimes they can overpower teams and win. But the thing is like England doesn't have that appeal, and they should completely have that feeling, but they're not showing it so far. It's kind of like I would say Sweden is the same as England, but I think that England should be able to mop the floor with Sweden based on what we've seen and England's overall quality.
All right, so that's something to watch out for as the tournament goes along. And yeah, so England's moving on. Japan is moving on. We're still waiting to see Argentina. But tomorrow we have the last group stage matches. But before we talk about that, Matt, what was your save of the day today?
My save of the day was in the 68th minute. It was the kick save that Korea. I'm going to do it for the rest of the time, aren't I? Korea makes off Cuthbert. It didn't initially look like a super impressive save, but it was a reaction save. Excuse me. I like reaction saves. I think they're the best, especially kind of point blank reaction saves where the keeper has to do something. All she had to do was to turn her left foot slightly out to try to parry the ball wide of the box, which she did. I mean, it was unfortunate that Cuthbert ended up with the ball again, but still it was a great save.
So was this the kick save or was this the diving save?
Kick save.
Top? Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. She ended up with the ball again on some level.
Got it. Okay. 9th minute for me. My save of the day is the Bardsley save on the Yokoyama free kick in the 9th minute of the game. Again, free kick was incredibly well struck. It's going upper 90, absolutely beautiful. And Bardsley gets a fingertip to it, touches it off the bar. So that was my save of the day. Matt, what was your goal of the day?
It was the Bunsagunda goal. Shooting from distance, and then Alexander putting it in off the crossbar, and then it bounces out, and then backward has just enough backspin to go into the goal. So
yeah, it's unfortunate that was given as an Alexander own goal because it almost deserved the goal for the player shooting it, but it is what it is. So my goal of the day is the second goal for England, 84th minute. It's just a great combination play. Again, even though it's coming against a run of play, you have Nikita Paris starting it off. She drives inside to Scott, quick to Carney, and then Carney very quickly then into White, who finishes first time. Again, it was just so ruthless of an attack from England. That's why it was my goal of the day. Matt, what was your moment of the day?
It was just the end of that Scotland game, the Scotland-Argentina game. Kind of the ridiculousness with how long the VAR took, how the ref didn't add time, kind of the gray area in the rules. I guess it's just your foot has to be on the line, and that means it has to be touching the line. It's not vertical. So yeah, that's my moment of the game just around then.
Yeah, and honestly, that's going to be my moment of the day too, because it completely took my focus off of the game that I was actually watching, and just everything about that. The substitution to start it all
Yeah.
off, the VAR and the penalty, the retake of the penalty saved, and the retake of the penalty, and then the no stoppage time or not nearly enough stoppage time. That has to be, yeah, my moment of the day as well, even though it's not a moment. Matt, let's talk about tomorrow's matches.
Okay.
We have 4 matches. Come on, phone. We have 4 matches, and we have Cameroon, New Zealand, Netherlands versus Canada as our 2 early matches. Those are happening at noon Eastern Standard Time. Then we have Sweden taking on the US and Thailand facing Chile at our 3 p.m. kickoff times. Matt, what's going to happen in Cameroon, New Zealand?
New Zealand should win this game. I think they're better. I used to think that Tom Sermani was a really tactically astute coach. I'm beginning to question that now. He definitely has gotten the team to play all on the same page, but it seems like he wants them to play more attacking than possibly New Zealand should. It is making the players happy. I don't think that they should bunker and then hope to like play for draws all the time like the previous coaching regime, but sometimes it seems like they're playing too free and open to actually deal with their opponents. Now, Cameroon has quite a bit of speed. They're not anywhere near as technical as New Zealand. So I think New Zealand probably wins this one either 1-0 or 2-1. Probably 2-1.
I think that's all really well said. I don't have much else to add. I'll give a 1-goal victory to New Zealand as well. Matt, what's going to happen? Netherlands versus Canada. I'm really excited about that game.
I don't know. I'm a Canada homer, being married to a Canadian, dual citizen daughter. Lived there for 3.5 years, became a huge fan of the team. I really like how they're playing. Like I said, they were, what did I say? They were the something death squad. The plotting death squad is how they used to be, because they were such a physical, aggressive, like hockey team on a soccer pitch. But they're not like that anymore. They have technical players. They have speed. They have width. They have creativity. They've got quite a few players playing in the NWSL. Everybody talks about Christine Sinclair this, Christine Sinclair that. We haven't even seen Jordan Huitema, who's the 18-year-old who is the fastest player on the team. And who is skipping college to play in Spain. Oh man, I can't remember. Maybe she's going to France. She's either going to France or Spain. Watch her going to Germany, and I'm just totally wrong. But either way, she's skipping college to go play in Europe. She's tall. She's about 5'10". She would actually be a great counterpoint if she could get into somebody like Christine Sinclair. She just, she's 18 and she plays like an 18-year-old. She's prone to mistakes. So that's that. The Netherlands, however, has looked really good in stretches, but has not been able to put together a complete game at all. I think Canada has more confidence. I think the Netherlands has more flair. So I don't know. I have a feeling that Canada is going to win this in a 1-0. It's a 1-0 game. That's what I think the result's going to be. But it could also be a 3-0 blowout by the Netherlands, but I just don't think it's going to turn out that way.
I'm going to give the edge to Netherlands here just because I think that they're just ever so slightly more talented, like you were talking about with flair players. And they haven't really had an opportunity to really get out and run. I think I can recall, I can't even remember which game. I think it was the New Zealand game where there was one opportunity where Martins had the ball and Miedema and Van de Senden were all out on the run. And you could kind of see the way Netherlands actually wanted to play. And Canada, being aggressive, being talented, might open up and attack. And then Netherlands might be able to, hit them on the counter, get Van de Senden out into some space. And so I'm going to give the slight edge to Netherlands there, but I'm really excited about that game. Let's talk about Thailand, Chile before we end on a high note. What do you think is going to happen in Thailand versus Chile?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't care. That's the wrong thing to say about a World Cup match. I don't care. Chile's better. They are better. They're probably going to win 2-0 or 2-1. But that's really it. It's going to be, it's going to be a clash of two happy to be here's, and maybe one of those teams is hopefully one of those teams comes out with a victory, and the other team can still go home proud knowing that they were at a World Cup.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I'm interested to see how Endler does. Obviously, she had a fantastic performance against the USA and is getting a lot of hype as the best goalkeeper in the world. So I'll be looking out for her. And I'm going to give the edge to Chile just because they kept it closer in their matches versus the other, powerhouses that we'll talk about next. But I don't really know what's going to happen here, but I got to give the edge to Chile. Now, Matt, Sweden versus USA. What do you think is going to happen there?
So I've already kind of hinted at this. Sweden's not as good as I thought they would be. I think the match is going to end up 3-1. I think the U.S. does get scored on. I think they need to get scored on. By the way, I have the turquoise blue version of that shirt, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Sporting the Total Soccer Show guys. They got a great podcast out there.
So that's the U.S. is just going to be too much for them. Sweden's going to think that they're good enough to match up against the United States. The thing about the U.S. is they don't have a weak spot. I mean, yeah, the quality drops a little bit when they bring on their second squad, maybe because they haven't had enough time to gel and play together. But like Christen Press would basically be a starter on, I think, any other team on the planet, Mallory Pugh would be a starter on almost all the other teams, except for maybe France, with Press and Pugh, but they're just so good. Like the US's secondary attack is ridiculously world-class. Their defense is good. It just depends on the team goes as Julie Ertz goes. If she has a good game, which she almost always does, if she doesn't get into yellow card trouble, is she on a yellow? Do we know? I can't remember.
I don't believe so.
She is. I thought
is
she was.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
That.
But that's how I think it's going to go. It's going to be a 3-1 victory for the United States. I think it's going to be comprehensive. I think the United States is going to go into the knockout round feeling very confident, like they can beat everyone. And if they have a good showing against Sweden, that stacks them up well.
Yeah, so Julie Ertz is not in yellow card trouble, good. So there's at least that. And I'm just excited to see the U.S. come up against a legit opponent.
Yes.
Again, I've been so impressed with their attack. And yeah, they haven't gone against the toughest opposition, but they're just, I swear to God, they have more players that can kick the ball harder than every other team that I've seen. And I know that's not just what this World Cup is about, but there is an element of, I don't want to pick on them, but like you see Japanese players, trying to take a shot from 25 yards out, and they're just sort of lofted balls that are relatively easy to save outside of one or two chances here or there. But the U.S. has multiple players that can fire from outside of the box. They have players that can take people one-on-one. Tobin Heath, Megan Rapinoe, coming off the bench, Christen Press, Mal Pugh, and their attack is just so good and it's diversified in so many ways. And so, it's not even touching on Carly Lloyd, who's a fox in the box and can, score if she has half of a chance or a quarter of a chance. And, I'm excited to see them come up against a team that should be relatively strong defensively. Sweden doesn't have the greatest attack, and I would like to see the U.S. really challenged because I'm worried about the speed of the center backs. That would be my concern for the U.S., but you have Crystal Dunn and Kelly O'Hara who have a bit of speed and can kind of make up for that in case of emergency is what I'll say. So I think the U.S. wins, but I'm really curious to see how they deal with a team actually attacking them. So that's what I'm going to be looking up for.
Well, I have to say something here.
Yep.
Becky Sauerbrunn is not as slow as everybody thinks she is. Everybody talks about how she lacks pace. She actually is surprisingly fast. I'm not saying she's not a speed demon, but you look at her body type and, with kind of shorter legs, longer torso, a lot of core strength and stuff like that. Her top end speed is faster than people think it is. And she surprises players with it.
Okay. So that's something to watch out for. That's good to know. I think that makes me feel maybe a little bit better, but thank you for that. Who's a player you're going to be looking out for tomorrow, Matt?
Listen there. I'm not confident in her keeping it all. She seems to make at least one bad decision, like almost tragically bad decision a game. I think she's what's going to separate the U.S. from victories or results in this World Cup from non-victories and results. So she's the player that I'm going to be watching on that team going forward. I'm going to pick another one too. I want Christine Sinclair to get some goals. So because of the goal record. And I'm also tired of hearing the commentators talk about, she hasn't scored. That's got to be on her mind. No, I don't believe it's on her mind.
All right, so we got an American goalkeeper and a Canadian attacker. I'm going to take Rose Lavelle. I was excited to see her play her second match against Chile, and she didn't get to play. So I'm going to say, her as my player to watch for the U.S. women's national team yet again, because I was so impressed with her performance. Granted, it was against Thailand, but again, the little things that she does with the ball at her feet and thunderous left-footed strike, I really, really liked her game. I'm excited to see her challenged against a legit opponent here. And so that's the player I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Matt, anything else you want to add for today?
No, sir.
All right. Anyone who has joined us live on YouTube, Sal, Jeff, thank you guys both for being here, interacting with us. We record live on YouTube for anyone listening to the podcast right after the match is finished. So come hang out with us. You can interact with us as we record. We'll be back again tomorrow for the U.S. women's national team. Follow us on Twitter at BT Soccer Pod. Matt, what is your Twitter handle?
At Northwood Guitar, all one word.
All right, there you go. If you liked what you heard here, please leave us a review on iTunes. That would really help us out. We would greatly appreciate it. If you want to email us, bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com is our email. Check out our website, brostalkingsoccer.com. You can read about us, check out past episodes, support us. We have some merch for sale, and you can get a sweatshirt, long sleeve tee. We'll have t-shirts for sale in the not too distant future. So excited about all of that. Make sure to check us out there. Matt, thank you so much for being here and talking with me today.
Thanks for having me on again, Dave.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with day 14 recap, June 20th tomorrow. Final group stage matches, and then we're on to the fun stuff in the knockout round. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody. And Jeff and Sal, thank you guys both for being here. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.